The stench of burnt silk was still hanging in the air when 150 guests turned in unison to watch me walk down the aisle. I wasn't wearing the $1,200 lavender bridesmaid dress my sister-in-law, Vanessa, had handpicked for her luxury garden wedding. I was standing at the entrance in a simple, sharply tailored black blazer dress, holding a pristine manila envelope flat against my side. Vanessa's face went entirely white under her bridal veil. Her hand froze mid-air as she prepared to clutch her bouquet, her lip trembling not with tears, but with pure, unadulterated terror. Behind her, her fiancé, my big brother, Marcus, squinted in utter confusion, his eyes dropping to the thick red legal stamp visible through the transparent window of my folder. "What is she doing here?" Vanessa hissed loudly into the silent church, her voice echoing off the stained glass windows. "Security, I told you she was banned. Get her out of my sight." I didn't run. I didn't yell. I simply unclasped the envelope, pulled out a gold-embossed document, and spoke clearly into the stillness of the cathedral. "You can't ban me from the venue, Vanessa," I said, my voice cutting cleanly through the murmur of the crowd. "Because according to the county land registry processed 3 hours ago, you don't own the property you put up as collateral." "I do." To understand how a 30-year-old hospital administrator ended up holding the deed to her sister-in-law's home 10 minutes before a wedding ceremony, you have to go back 8 weeks. My name is Clara. At 30, I've spent the last 6 years quietly building a career in healthcare compliance and saving every penny I earned. I lived below my means, invested early, and stayed out of family drama. My brother Marcus, on the other hand, had spent the last 2 years head over heels for Vanessa, a self-proclaimed lifestyle influencer who treated every family event like a high-budget reality show production. When Marcus announced their engagement, Vanessa immediately assigned roles. I was named a bridesmaid, not out of affection, but because, as she put it in our group chat, I was the only one with enough corporate credit to hold the deposit for the bachelorette weekend. I paid for the $1,200 dress without complaint. I paid $3,000 upfront for the mountain cabin getaway, trusting her promise that everyone would Venmo me back. But 3 weeks before the wedding, the reimbursements never came. Instead, every time I asked about the funds, Vanessa deflected. She posted photos of customized sculptures, designer shoes, and a newly renovated $850,000 suburban home she and Marcus had supposedly bought together as their wedding gift to themselves. When I gently pressed Marcus about my $3,000 reimbursement at a Sunday family dinner, Vanessa set her glass down so hard red wine splashed onto the tablecloth. "Are you really nickel-and-diming us right before our special day, Clara?" she snapped, folding her arms. "We just closed on a home. We have real adult investments to manage. Stop being so bitter and petty." My mother shushed me, whispering that I should be supportive of my brother's big step. But my compliance training kicked in. A strange instinct told me something didn't add up. The betrayal and the sabotage. The breaking point came 48 hours before the wedding. I arrived at the bridal suite to drop off the steamer for our dresses. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, Vanessa was on speakerphone with someone, her voice hushed but frantic. "I don't care what the lender says," she whispered aggressively into the phone. "The transfer goes through on Monday. Just don't run the title check until after the reception, or the whole loan collapses." I froze outside the door. I pulled out my phone and quietly recorded 30 seconds of her conversation before knocking. When Vanessa opened the door and saw me, her eye twitched. She knew I had heard something. Her sweet bridal demeanor instantly vanished into ice. The next evening, the night of the rehearsal dinner, I returned to my hotel room to find my bridesmaid dress hanging on the bathroom door. Or what was left of it. Someone had taken a pair of fabric shears and slashed the silk from collar to hem, then scorched the bodice with a flat iron until the fabric was melted into black, crusty plastic. Laid neatly on the vanity next to the ruined dress was a handwritten note in Vanessa's distinctive cursive handwriting. "Oops. Accidents happen to bitter people who poke their noses where they don't belong. You're uninvited. Stay away from my groom. The audit and the discovery." I didn't cry. I didn't call her screaming. Instead, I sat down at my laptop in the hotel room, opened my personal finance ledger, and called a college friend who worked as a senior title researcher for the county land registry office. It took her less than 45 minutes to dig up the public filings for Vanessa and Marcus's new house. And what she found made my blood run cold. Vanessa hadn't bought the house with her savings. 6 months ago, when my father was hospitalized with pneumonia, Vanessa had volunteered to help my mother set up a secondary medical line of credit using our family's ancestral property as equity. She hadn't set up a medical fund. She had forged my mother's digital signature, opened an undisclosed joint private mortgage, and used the equity from my parents' house as the down payment for her own luxury property. Worse, she had listed her new house under a single-member LLC, and she was 3 days away from defaulting on the short-term hard money bridge loan she used to cover the closing costs. She was planning to let the loan default after the wedding, forcing the lender to seize my mother's house to satisfy the debt. She thought she had ruined my dress and scared me into staying home. She had no idea that I spent the entire night working with an emergency real estate attorney to execute a pre-existing lien I held on my parents' estate. By the time I finished speaking at the back of the cathedral, you could hear a pin drop across the entire church. Vanessa's face went from pale white to a deep, blotchy red. "She's lying," she shrieked, turning toward the altar and grabbing Marcus's arm. "Marcus, tell security to throw her out. She's mentally unstable. She destroyed her own dress because she was jealous of us." Marcus looked between his bride and me, his jaw trembling. "Clara, what are you talking about? What deed?" I walked slowly down the center aisle, the heels of my shoes clicking sharply against the marble floor. Every guest's phone was already out, cameras recording every second. 3 weeks ago, Vanessa set up a hard money bridge loan for $85,000 to cover the remaining balance on your new suburban home, I explained, looking directly at my brother. To secure that loan, she forged Mom's digital signature and placed a lien on Mom's house as collateral. My mother, sitting in the front row, let out a sharp gasp and clutched her chest. She thought the loan would default next week, letting the bank foreclose on Mom while her LLC held your new house clean, I continued. What Vanessa didn't check is who bought that default note at 8 a.m. this morning. I pulled the stamped county deed from my folder and held it up. I purchased the note in cash through my holding trust. I satisfied the underlying debt on Mom's house, transferred the deed of trust to my name, and executed an immediate foreclosure on your LLC for fraud and non-payment. You can't do that. Vanessa screamed, completely dropping her polished bride persona. She lunged forward, trying to snatch the folder out of my hands, but Marcus caught her by the wrists. Marcus stared at his bride, horror dawning across his face. "Vanessa, is this true? Did you use Mom's house? I was going to pay it back." Vanessa sobbed, her voice ringing out across the microphone setup at the altar. We needed the house to look established for my brand sponsors. I was going to get a brand deal after the wedding and pay Mom back before she ever noticed. With what money? I interrupted calmly. I pulled out a second sheet of paper, a printed ledger. The $3,000 you stole from me for the bachelorette party? Or the $12,000 you charged to Marcus's credit cards under vague merchant codes listed as bridal consultation? Marcus dropped her hands as if she had burned him. He pulled his boutonniere off his lapel and threw it onto the floor. "The wedding is off," Marcus said, his voice flat and dead. "Marcus, no. Think about the guests. Think about the deposits." Vanessa pleaded, dropping to her knees on her designer gown, grabbing at his dress pants. "We can fix this. She's just doing this to ruin my day." "You ruined your own day the second you tried to make our mother homeless for an Instagram photo," Marcus said bitterly. He turned to the 150 stunned guests, raised his hands, and said, "I'm sorry everyone. The reception is cancelled. Head home." He walked straight past her, down the aisle, and stood right beside me. The fallout in the weeks that followed was swift and absolute. Vanessa didn't just lose her dream wedding, she lost her entire fabricated lifestyle. My friend at the title office and my real estate attorney forwarded the audio recording I took outside her suite, along with the forged digital documents, straight to the district attorney's financial crimes unit. Because the forged line of credit involved bank fraud, grand larceny, and financial exploitation of an elder, the DA didn't hesitate to file formal felony charges. During the forensic audit of her LLC, investigators discovered Vanessa had been running the same equity scam on 2 previous ex-fiancés, using fake investment properties to fund her personal shopping and luxury travel. Her brand sponsors dropped her within 48 hours after video footage of the church confrontation went viral on TikTok, reaching over 12 million views. The footage showed her kneeling on the aisle floor screaming about her sponsors while I held the deed. Vanessa was forced to surrender her suburban home, sell her luxury vehicle to pay partial restitution to my mother, and eventually accepted a plea bargain that included mandatory probation, community service, and a permanent felony record for wire fraud. As for my family, the experience was a harsh wake-up call. Marcus moved back into my parents' house for a few months to help Mom reorganize her finances, thoroughly humiliated that he had almost been dragged into a financial nightmare. I kept the suburban home, legally evicted Vanessa's belongings, and listed it on the market for a clean profit that went straight into an untouchable trust fund for my mother's retirement. Sitting on my apartment balcony a few months later, sipping coffee in my comfortable clothes, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcus, a photo of Mom smiling peacefully in her garden, safe in the house she had lived in for 30 years. Vanessa tried to destroy my dress to intimidate me into staying quiet. But she forgot one simple rule: never cross someone who knows how to read the fine print.